For today's panel discussion, Mr. Sham Saranji will chair and moderate the sessions. Mr. Sham Saranji is a former Foreign Secretary and has served as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy for the Nuclear Affair and Climate Change and Chairman of National Security Advisor Board. He is currently the Chairman of Research and Information System for the Development Country, a trustee of the World Wildlife Fund India. In 2011 January, Mr. Sham Saran was awarded the Padma Bhushans for his contribution to civil service. He writes and speaks regularly on foreign policy, climate change, energy security, and national and international security-related issues. May I now request Mr. Sham Saranji to take the charge of sessions.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me offer my very warm greetings to all of us who are gathered here this afternoon to observe the 80th birthday of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Let me begin by offering all our collective greetings to His Holiness on achieving this very important milestone. And also for expressing our gratitude that we have been singularly fortunate and privileged to have a person of his eminence, a person who commands international respect and reverence as a humanist, as a religious leader, that he has chosen our country as his home. It is truly something which we should take as a blessing for all of us. His Holiness the Dalai Lama is, in a real sense, the living symbol of a universal brotherhood. At a time when our world is riven with conflict, with dissension, and even despair, His Holiness is, in a very real sense, a messenger of hope, reminding us of what binds us together as humanity. Help us perhaps overcome some of these divisions which we see amongst ourselves. I would also like to mention here that it is really quite remarkable that His Holiness has, in fact, in a very real sense, become one of us. He's a leader of the Tibetan community. He represents a very ancient spiritual heritage of Tibet. And yet he has always said, at least whenever I have met him, he has always said that he is only bringing back to India what India gave to Tibet. Perhaps reminding us of a very rich spiritual heritage that we ourselves have sometimes forgotten about. He has created, he has rekindled, in a very real sense, that sense of spirituality that really is our heritage. So it is very fitting, very appropriate that we gather here today to celebrate his 80th birthday, to wish him a very long life so that he continues to be amongst us for many more years to come, continue to guide us with his, it's rather strange that His Holiness is such a great spiritual leader, and yet he is someone who puts across his message with such grace, with such humor. He's always laughing. He is always seems to be in a very good mood, and it is through this kind of a spirit that he really spreads his message across. In his presence, we are aware of his great spiritual quality, but at the same time, we relate to him because he comes to us so much as our own human being. So it is, as I said, very appropriate that we celebrate this occasion. We now have the privilege of listening to Mr. Arun Shourie, former Union Minister, Mr. Shourie will be speaking about secular ethics and human values.
Yeah, sir, everyone has wonderful instances of his meeting the Dalai Lama and being in his presence. And we are here to wish him the long life. Sir, we have each been given a different topic so that a diamond can be seen from different facets. And I've been asked to speak on his contribution on this idea of a universal ethic. And it is a very important idea, and I'll mention that. It has been the theme of several of his books. Also, we were just, Geshe was just mentioning about the universe in one atom, the book Beyond Religion, actually precisely the book on this topic called Ethics for the New Millennium. In each of these books, he has tried to universalize and to make contemporary and to root in our individual needs and the needs of society and the needs of humanity as a whole and of the earth as a whole, the ethical principles by which we must live. And that just as the Buddha said that you must test what I am saying. So instead of saying just because the Buddha said or because such and such scripture says, therefore you should do this, he is saying this is your experience, this is the situation in which all of us are, therefore you should behave like this. And the best example of living by those principles, I mean, the best teacher actually is one's own life. And in that sense, it is his life that has been the great exemplar of the ethical values by which we should all live. So many persons who speak in the name of religion, you see their conduct, and even ordinary people like us are ashamed to hear about that conduct, to see the exemplary conduct of a man who's always in the public eye and about whom nothing is hidden. It is such an uplifting example for each of us. Similarly, the one word which every speaker has mentioned about his compassion, even for the Chinese, and he always misses the Chinese, even the Chinese rulers so well, is converting, is the exemplar of converting suffering into a benediction. The great suffering of his people and therefore of himself into the benediction for all of us. We keep saying that, and he keeps saying out of politeness and to encourage us that I'm only bringing back to India a tradition that was taken from here. But actually the fact is that we had forgotten that tradition completely. In fact, by even the late 18th century, the Buddha had been almost completely forgotten, except for 2-3 German explorers and 3-4 British explorers. We had just erased him from collective consciousness. So in a sense, it is true that that tradition was preserved in the fastness of Tibet, but it has been recreated, and he has really brought us a tradition which we, I hope, by his encouraging us to call as our own, we will actually revive it in our own hearts. But it is the great example that because of Chinese oppression, he has spread the fragrance of that tradition all over the world. Third, I think the fourth point is an example of living by those principles of endowing hope and happiness. A friend taught me this 20 years ago. He said, you look at any refugee community in the world, and they are so distraught, they are so bitter, they are onto all sorts of problems of personal life, of their communal life. But you look at the Tibetans. They are happy, they are cheerful, in spite of the great, the absolute having been thrown out, and in a sense, just cast into an unknown abyss. It is the fastness, the innocence of a mountain people which is seen there. It is the Buddha's teaching which is seen there, but it is also the contribution of this one single man in sustaining hope. Sir, I remember, we are all recalling wonderful words of the Dalai Lama, and I remember an interview of his in which the journalist asks him, you see, your people have suffered so much. Because of them, you suffer so much. But how is it you keep laughing? and your sense of humor, and your smile. And he said, well, the Chinese have taken away our history. They've taken away our land. They have broken our temples. They have burnt our scriptures. They have taken everything. So I always feel, why should I also lose my sleep to them? Why should I give it that also up? But this way, he has kept his whole community's spirits up. So if I may say so, that is also an example to, I'm sure it will not offend anybody, but the way, you see, look at the Tibetan cause. We were just reminded that the whole population of Tibet is 6 million, 60 lakhs. That is less than 1/3 of Delhi. I just now asked Geshe, our venerable director, what are the total number of refugees, of the Tibetan refugees in the world? He said about 2 lakhs. 2 lakhs. And yet it is a cause for the world as a whole. The oppression of the people, because of these 2 lakh persons, has become a cause for the world. It is a cause because of the Dalai Lama. Really speaking, because the world does not care for the oppression of other people. But his continuous presence, his good cheer, his giving us his teaching, his time, has made Tibet's cause everybody's cause. And in that sense also, he is an example to civil society. So many of us get so angry because of the injustices that we see and which we want to take up, and which we are so furious that other people don't speak up for those against those injustices. But he has shown how by goodness you can make a cause of the world. And that's a great example, sir. And there's another very great example to each one of us of how he carries his great learning so lightly. So many of us with little learning get so puffed up. And he just, I remember, sir, there was a lecture of his on the qualities of a good teacher. And he was counting, he said there are 11, or probably 10. And he counted, I'm sure he knows the 10. He said, there's the 7th, 8th, 9, 10, Dalai Lama forgets. So at once he brought it home to us, what we were being told, that he gets into our heart by being as if he's just like us, another human being. So in many ways, in all these ways, he is the teaching, his life, his example is the great teaching by which he inculcates these values in each one of us. So in his great contribution has also been at the level of doctrine, and because of the lightness with which he conveys it, we sort of underestimate that. And because the great truths have to be reformulated as the world changes each time. And he has reformulated many truths in this way, and he has grounded the ancient truths in science. The work of the Mind and Life Institute, which has really been sustained by his participation and blessing in that, is one example of doing this. And now in all these books that were being mentioned, he has rooted the ethical principles in the basic and derived them from the most basic truths about humanity and of our life. That each one of us wants to be happy. It's almost like a cliche. That each one of us wants to avoid suffering. But from these, he will say, therefore, there is a basic attitude that is required. That basic attitude, one of the essential elements in that is discernment. Because of that discernment, we'll come to distinguish between things that give us only temporary relief and happiness, and those which give us an enduring and lasting happiness. And from that, he comes to the ethic of virtue, and so on. So all the great truths are rooted in and derived from basic human impulses and human needs. In the same way, you will see the chapters on ethics for a society, ethics for humanity, derived, let us say, from our exploitation of nature and the consequences of that. Even more important, there are many of his discourses and in his chapters in these books on ethics for the religious, and ethics for religion, and ethics for religious organizations come about. For instance, so much of discord has come about in the last many centuries, 1,000 years, because of the claims to being the exclusive possessors of the one truth. And that it is my God-given mandate to spread this particular truth. And to first offer it to you, and if you don't take it, then I must force it down your throat. Because of this claim of exclusivity, it leads to intolerance and therefore to violence. So he has taught us how actually we must be open-minded in these matters, the idea of a chosen people, and most important, the means by which I may spread the truth that I have discerned. In each of these, he has pointed out to the consequences of exclusivist claims and what happens as a consequence. And as I mentioned, that they are in several of these books. Each of these is, this particular contribution is, I believe, of fundamental importance, because if you see 50, even because of the rate at which knowledge is spreading, 50 years from now, religions as we know them today will be almost unrecognizable. That's what survives. Because already that you see that we know so much more today about the way rituals originated, about the way religions originated. There is the theory of mind, for instance, on all the psychologists will tell us, and how therefore to survive I must know what is I must have a theory about what is in the mind of the other. And thereby I must endow him with a purpose. And also inanimate things, if the bush shakes, I must endow it with a meaning, because is it a tiger behind it or is it just the breeze? And thereby, so we developed a theory of mind, therefore we develop the obsession of endowing things, even inanimate things, with a purpose. Therefore, phenomena with a purpose. Once you have phenomena with a purpose, you must have a purpose giver. And therefore, concepts of God and all develop. So one way in which the origin of religions is explained. In another way, when this has been, as the group comes, we must all develop notions, we must internalize values which are required for the existence and survival of the group. If each of us keeps killing each other, the group is not going to survive. Therefore, no, you must not kill. But there are others who may be predators, so you must not kill each other, but you must kill the others. So these notions developed, and they have been traced to normal evolution of society. But as the group became larger, you had to supervise, to make sure, in a small group, everybody can know whether he is obeying the same rule, living by the same rules or not. But as the group becomes larger, we become anonymous. Therefore, while more eyes are watching each person, but everybody has become anonymous, therefore in a mob you can do all sorts of things. You can kill and nobody will know. Therefore you need somebody who watches you all the time. And who not only watches what you do overtly, but he watches what is in your mind. So God becomes the all-knowing creature. Now there are so many such theories. When the lives of the founders of religions have coincided with their becoming the founders of states, then the idea of a jealous God has come. Because the 20 tribes quarreling, in the end there must be only one dominant tribe. So you must enforce that only that tribe will be obeyed. And in that, the leader of that tribe alone will be obeyed. So not too many gods, only one God. And he's very jealous. If you don't obey him. Now, when we know so much more about religions, about society, about rituals, and now there are so many more hypotheses about the founders of religions, for instance, of persons who saw visions, of who heard voices, who wrote automatically. Many saints have said, not I didn't write, but it just came. Many mystics have said this. And this has been related to functions in the temporal lobe. So you know more about origin of religions, you know about the rituals, you know about religions, you know about the founders of religions. Therefore, the old notion that ethical principles should be rooted or derived from or taken as they have been stated in conventional religion and religion texts is not one that holds today, and will be eroded more and more gets known about religions and founders of religions and religious texts. Therefore, the contribution of the Dalai Lama in rooting ethical conduct and the principles of ethical conduct, from rooting them in basic human needs and not in just mere religious texts or derived religions or organized religions. It is a contribution of the greatest importance. And he is uniquely fitted for this task, and I'll end with just 2 sentences here. First, because of his openness. You see, I have not seen another leader, another religious figure, who has given even a simple formulation. He has said, Buddhism must face facts. What a beautiful, but what a far-reaching statement. So he says that if new facts are discovered, for instance in neuroscience or in cosmology, and they contradict what was in the old text, you must discard the old text. And we were in one of his discourses in Ashoka Hotel, and he was recounting, a text was being read and then he would comment on it. And a passage was read on the cosmos, its nature, its origin. He listened with a frown, like acting. He said, these Buddhist notions of cosmology, so embarrassing. You must always have a waste paper basket near you. So when new theory, old fact, old theory, new fact, old theory don't coincide, throw old theory in the waste paper basket. No other religious leader would have the self-confidence to say that. And similarly, in persuading the great Tibetan masters of meditation to collaborate and to make themselves available for study by neuroscientists, it has been a great contribution. It will be a great contribution tomorrow for therapy because of the discoveries that will be made on about the relationship of the mind to the body, but also of the therapeutic changes that can be brought about by working on the mind. And one is that he is uniquely suited, and second is that Buddhism is the most suited to absorb new facts in this way, because as he has said, he says always, Buddhism is not a religion, it is a science of the mind. So for all these reasons, his contribution at the doctrinal sphere also is of fundamental importance, and therefore we should always wish him great good health and the longest of lives. Thank you very much.